Okay, so testing's done, and the beginning of Project 60 is to build endurance. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm out just doing a zone 2 ride, a traditional old school aerobic ride. I'm just focusing on heart rate, keeping it at a steady zone 2 heart rate, trying not to put too much effort in, which is sometimes hard on the hills. So today I'm out and I'm probably just going to do a couple of hours. It is cold today and I don't like really riding in the cold. I find my body's doing as much as it can just to keep me warm, especially when you're doing zone 2 and you're not really building up a sweat. But the idea, of course, with an endurance ride is to fatigue your slow twitch fibres, and by doing that you build their aerobic capabilities and increase mitochondria in your muscles and all those sorts of things. So really 2 hours is a minimum I want to be doing. Before Christmas in October, November, I was doing 4-hour rides most weeks, which sort of hit the target, certainly fatigued me anyway. And I want to start getting back into that if I can. But as I said, long hours outside when it's really cold aren't really my thing, but what needs to be done needs to be done. I could even, of course, go back and do an hour on the trainer if necessary. How do you do your zone 2 training when it's cold? You just brave it, go out and do a few hours outside? Do you go on the turbo or trainer? What do you do? Drop it in the comments below. If you're enjoying watching this content, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It will really help the channel grow and I can show more content like this. At the moment today the road's closed, which is quite nice, so there's virtually no traffic. And bikes can just get through. So as the weather warms up a bit, I'll hopefully start getting out a bit more for longer rides to keep maintaining and building that endurance. And I think probably if you've got thousands of miles in your legs over a few years, you've probably got quite good aerobic capabilities anyway, but it's always useful to keep them topped up. So as I said, I am focusing on heart rate, and that's the main metric I'm looking at on my computer. As you can see, my main metric at the top there is heart rate, and I'm trying to keep it below about 135. Around 130 is good. That's my sort of zone 2. One thing I find harder about endurance rides is just being able to do it and not get bored. Normally 2 or 3 hours is more than enough for me. I'm not a big mile person, although over a year I do all right, especially when you're trying to do zone 2. I find riding with other people when I'm trying to do zone 2 quite hard. It's very hard to stay in zone 2 on a club ride. Overall, when you come back after a ride, it might say a zone 2 average heart rate or power, but when you look at the power you do through the ride, it can often be, in my experience, way above zone 2. Club rides always end up being a bit of a race at some point, or a surge up hills and things like that, and if you want to stay with the ride, you have to do that. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know. A lot of people I know who are fitter than I am do club rides like that, which is more the traditional riding. I've got a video on that which I'll link either on screen now or at the end, about whether you have to do zone 2. And I know, as I said, a lot of people get fit just riding and don't worry too much about it and try to keep it steady when they can. But if you want to do specific zone 2, it's probably best doing it on your own. And how much do you have to do? Well, that depends how fit you are. The fitter you are, really, the more you have to do. And a 3, 4, 5 hour ride is more important. If you're just getting into riding, maybe 1 or 2 hours is plenty to build that endurance and aerobic base. But the fitter you are, the more experienced, the longer you have to do. Hence Pogacar doing 5 hour rides at 300 watts. One thing I do find a bit tricky on a solo endurance ride is making sure you're keeping your sort of speed up. So by that I mean, sometimes I do find myself, because I'm going slow and steady, and you look down and you realise you're going really slow and steady, and you might need to push it up a bit. Because zone 2 riding, although it's steady and relatively a low level, does tire you out. It is fatiguing, as it's meant to be. Riding 2 or 3 hours in a solid zone 2 is quite hard work, and it's easy for your body to take a bit of a break. Another important thing to do, of course, on a zone 2 ride, even though it is zone 2, is keep eating. And you need to keep eating and drinking, just because even at endurance pace, your body is probably going to end up using more calories than you can produce from either glycogen stores or fat stores. And so it's useful just keep eating a little bit, maybe 50, 60 grams of carbs an hour, just to keep you going, especially if you are doing a long 3 or 4 hour ride. There's no point bonking halfway out on the ride, knowing you've got a long way to come home. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to do a long coffee stop and go inside for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Your body then is starting to shut down and recover, and then you're going to expect it to get back in that endurance zone half an hour or whatever later. But quick bite to eat and back on it. One thing I do use on long rides is bone conducting headphones, because, as I said, I do find it hard to keep going on my own for 2 or 3 hours. So having something to listen to really helps me keep going. So I'm going up a climb at the moment, but I am trying to go up very gently, almost embarrassingly so, but just keeping my heart rate low if I can. Okay, so almost back home, done, coming up to about 2 hours 40 minutes, maybe 45 by the time I get there. So a little bit more than I'd planned on doing, which is good. Feeling good, nothing too fast, certainly not a lot of power, but keeping that heart rate around that zone 2, which was the plan. So are you doing your endurance rides at the moment? How are you finding them? Don't forget to drop it in the comments below. If you're enjoying this content and following Project 60, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, to help the channel grow. Thanks. And until next time, bye for now.